Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tea Time. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Isa.
And this is our last episode for the summer. It's been kind of a crazy season.
It's kind of crazy how we started this podcast around 6 months ago when quarantine... It's not when quarantine started, but around that time. And just how much we've grown is, insane to me.
For sure. We just finished listening to our first episode of the season, which was the Dependence on People episode, which was kind of where we were at in quarantine at that point. And considering it's been so long since then, that episode was released April 29th, and the day we are recording today, it is
August 14th, which means it has officially made 6 months since quarantine was put in place in Florida.
It's crazy that it's been that long. And the difference in the quality of our episodes is just crazy.
That's kind of what we're basing today's episode off of.
This episode's going to be a lot different, actually. And we know we said that for the last 4 or 5 episodes, that it's going to be different. But this one is different from all of those in itself because today we're not going to have any interviews. It's just going to be us two recapping everything that's happened during quarantine and how much of a difference it's been since that first episode.
What has changed with you over the 6 months that quarantine has happened?
Oh my god, a lot has changed since it's been 6 months. Things would change either way, but because of this quarantine, it's been such more of an exponential change. Mm-hmm. As far as the podcast, I feel like my voice has gotten a lot better. It's not like every 5 seconds. It doesn't sound like I have bad connection anymore. So yeah, there's definitely been a lot of self-growth and a lot of things that have changed about me and that I've realized about myself that wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the quarantine. For example, I've met a lot of new people during the quarantine, Gael being one of them. If you've heard our previous episodes, he's been in quite a lot of them.
He was in our first.
Yeah, he was in our first, and he was in our previous one. Yeah, it's just been meeting new people, kind of taking more time for myself than I did before. Over the school year, I had distanced myself from a group of friends because of school, and it was very stressful, and I just didn't have the time to talk to them. And then at the beginning of spring break, we started talking again slowly, and now we're talking all the time, and I really got to connect with those old friends again, which was nice. And I don't feel that I would have been able to do that if it weren't for the quarantine. I probably just would have distanced myself from them completely. Not on purpose, obviously, because they've been there for me since day one and they mean the world. But other than that, my mindset's changed completely. My mindset about this whole quarantine, at the beginning I thought it was the end of the world, that it was only going to last a little bit. But 6 months later, we're still here. We're starting school virtually now. We're literally living history. So how have you changed during this quarantine?
Mindset? Kind of the same, because I always considered myself a go-getter and just push through. It's gonna work. It's gonna be fine. I've had time to self-reflect and stuff, and in this quarantine, I've become I've become more productive, because one, I've improved on my art, I've improved on this podcast. That hasn't really changed much for me, because I've always been a go-getter and pretty optimistic, but there were times where I would get anxious and stuff. And sometimes I wouldn't even sometimes it would just happen. And I'm like, okay, thanks for being here, but can you not? But that's exactly what happens when I get anxious. It's just hey, I'm here now and I'm gonna stay here for a solid 3 hours. And I'm like,
that's great.
I'm like, thank you. I'm trying to talk to my friends. But anyway, the one thing is I do really want quarantine to end because I want to actually go out and hang out with people without a mask. But quarantine has given me a lot of good things, especially this podcast as well, because I've grown as a person. I've become more capable of being able to be professional but also conversational. I know how to distance those two things. I can be professional, I can be conversational, and now I can be both. So, I think that's pretty good. And but back to what I was saying about my personal life, I guess. Quarantine has given me a lot of good. I met this group of people that support me with everything I do. And honestly, I don't know where I would be right now if I didn't meet them, because the amount of happiness that they give me and just joy. They could say the stupidest thing and I could be laughing about it for hours. I've never smiled and laughed so much, like, ever. And I want them to stay in my lives. Especially one person, which they're gonna know who this is when they listen to this. But I truly, and from the bottom of my heart, think that if quarantine didn't happen, I would never have met them, and I would not be where I am right now. They're the type of people that push me forward. I honestly, this podcast in quarantine has given me so much more than I deserve and I could ask for. But, thanks for quarantine, I made a great group of friends, and now I'm, in a relationship. I never thought that would happen. And I could never be happier. Any hobbies that you picked up? Have you maintained them?
So over the quarantine, I picked up a lot of things, some of which I kept up, like guitar. Guitar was one of those things I kept up. A lot of things with music. Rainbow Loom, I've kind of stopped a little bit because stuff got more hectic, but I continued that.
Mm-hmm.
Last night, actually, I painted plastic water bottles to look like Sesame Street characters.
It started off with 2.
And now there are 5 of them.
Exactly.
And I'm working on number
one
6.
now.
Yes. But it's not a water bottle, it's an orange juice carton. And then drawing, I stopped drawing for a little bit. But other than that, I think I pretty much kept everything else up. TV is just one of those things that's severely declined. We got rid of cable.
You got rid of cable?
We got rid of cable. Alright, so how about you? How have your habits and hobbies changed?
Well, drawing, there since before quarantine, but now I've gotten more dynamic. What have I picked up? I've been playing video games a lot more, mainly because of, my friends, but I haven't really done it much, but I've streamed on Twitch on and off, and it's really fun, just, interacting with an audience live, and, I do it with my friends most of the time, and I've been on other people's streams, and it's honestly just, really fun, and I might do it more, and I was thinking of doing a drawing stream, but my Mac can't handle that, so we're trying to figure out how that's gonna work.
You turned 15.
I turned 15! I turned 15 in quarantine. I was gonna have a big party, then I had a parade, which is like a big party, but on wheels. It was a whole thing. I don't know if we talked about this.
We probably didn't, but there was an air horn involved. I don't know who brought that.
You brought the air horn! Yeah, I turned 15 in quarantine. I started writing a comic, which I kind of left for a little while.
I forgot about that.
I know, and it was long. I had 100-something pages. What is your most prominent quarantine memory?
Well, I have a lot of memories throughout quarantine. Some of the most prominent ones are probably one of 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is when that one time before stuff got really, really bad with quarantine and Corona and stuff, before stuff got really bad here in Florida, I went to my friend's house and we all hung out. It was the first time I had hung out with anybody in person for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I had gone through this period where I was just very down and stuff because of quarantine. I couldn't see my friends and stuff. But after that, it was kind of this sense of relief that I finally was able to see people in person and stuff. So I think that day, there was a whole hose fight and stuff, garden hose.
Oh, wow.
Stuff that's happened in quarantine that's not been out is probably doing this podcast, honestly. Because this podcast has provided so much more than just something to do. It's also provided a sense of accomplishment. Wow. We did that.
I totally feel the same. Obviously not the garden hose incident, but the podcast, that's one of the main things that has stuck out for me because, if it weren't for a specific episode, a lot more of my more prominent memories would never have happened. One of my most prominent memories that is, outside and out and about, right? Or some of them, I guess, was, June 8th, birthday parade. Then, a few weeks later, that was the first time I was able to hang out with someone that wasn't for, an event. It was just for fun. and we went to Barnes & Noble, and that was a great day. Those are, like, the most prominent ones, like, outside, inside, podcast, 100%. Like, that satisfaction of just being like, I made that, I did that, and I'm proud of myself for that. It's just that whole social interaction thing. Humans are built for social interaction, and sometimes you can socially interact with people over the phone, but it's not the same, because you just have, me personally, the amount of times I've just wanted to, like, come through my screen and, like, hug the person I'm talking to, because I'm a very touchy-feely person. And I'm just like, I miss you. I want to give you a hug. But if I give them a hug, they might be in danger. And I don't want that to happen. You know? So it hurts to just not be able to give someone something as simple as a hug. Or a handshake. I don't handshake. I hug. But still, you know, it hurts. Like, talking to people over the phone is okay, but seeing them in person is so much better. Like, the serotonin boost is just, like, immaculate.
Things are so different now. Like, I've gone to grocery stores and I've gone to just to get food because, and just, like, going out to places is so different now.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the thing where you have to cough or sneeze in public for any unrelated reason? And you're so scared.
Yeah, like, you'll literally, like, not to mention, you're wearing a mask, so, like, people, you'll, like, do, like, a little, like, clearing your throat, like, and then people will be, like, giving you, like, the glare of, are you sick? But no, I just got a little tickle in my throat. Calm down.
I got off at Publix the other day, and that happened. I got out of Publix, and I was trying not to sneeze.
It was just staying there, and you were like...
It was just like...
The build-up. It's just all...
And it hurt so bad, because I was trying to hold in...
Your body is telling you, let it out. But you're like, no, actually. As far as school, when quarantine was happening, how do you think it's going to be different when it actually starts for us this upcoming school year?
Well, starts in person or starts...
Well, for us, it's going to start virtually.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's going to be any different from how it was when it had just started? Like, in March? March, correct?
In March, yeah. Since my mom is a teacher for the districts, she talks a lot about how things are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that they said is that it's going to be a full day of classes.
Oh.
So Zoom... No, it's not Zoom. It's a program called... You want to bring my mom?
If you want to bring her in, I'm not complaining.
Because I'm not going to explain it any better than she would. Okay, so starting the school year, how is it going to work? Are we going to be on Zoom all day? What kind of platforms are we going to use? Is it going to be similar to Zoom?
So I'm going to... As of today, we will be using a platform that's called Neuro, which will be embedded into the K-12 platform where your classes will be. Teachers will not have access to the program until the first day of school. Okay. I would imagine that that'll be the same for the students because the program is not ready for us to use as of right now. We've been given a demo platform to use that's been very difficult to use because leave it to Dade County Public Schools, we crashed the program. There's too many of us trying to get in at the same time. So it hasn't, a lot of us haven't been able to get in, but basically we can't do anything on it, but kind of explore and move, from here to there to get things figured out, but we can't actually do anything on it.
So I heard in the meeting just now that they said that they were going to have training for the students for the programs. Is that going to do you know if that's going to take up the first week or so, and do teachers get training for the same program as well?
Teachers are being trained beginning yesterday all the way through Thursday of next week. And students will be trained next week. The student sessions are going to be a little bit different from what I understand. They're going to be pre-recorded. What teachers are doing are webinars where we are able to interact with them, although we're not on camera. and we're not using our voices. We are interacting with them digitally, where we can ask questions and they're answering verbally, but we're typing them out and asking them as we speak.
And that's what you're doing right now.
That's what I'm doing right now. From what I understand, students will be doing it via webinars where it's just a pre-recording. Unless something changes, because as you know, everything here is what they call fluid, that's continuously changing.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah, so quarantine has had a lot of effects on us, and it's changed things, some things for the better, some for the worse.
Mm-hmm.
Before we conclude this last episode, we'd like to give a special shout out to anyone we've ever interviewed for letting us talk to them and giving us their time. We would also like to thank anyone who has helped us along the way and inspire us to come up with some of our best episode ideas. Last but not least, we would like to give a big thank you to Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Rodriguez, and Ms. Deramas, who have helped us so much throughout the process of creating our podcast. We would have not been able to do this without them, and we were so glad to have them. And I think that concludes the final episode for the summer of Tea Time. Thank you guys for joining us on this journey of improvement throughout our podcast. And we'll see you next time, maybe. Bye, guys.
Bye.